Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to another Round the Clock Fright segment. My name is Kimberly, and today I am going to be reviewing the 2021 film Fear Street, Part 1, 1994. So for most of you, or a lot of you, who have grown up to read a lot of R.L. Stine's books, this includes Goosebumps, and then he had the whole Fear Street series going. It is now being released on Netflix only of a much broader and much more gruesome. Like, if any of you've read or seen any of the Goosebumps, they're more children's, kind of like children's books and children's films. So it's very mild scares. Like, you barely have any blood. There is no blood at all, to be honest. It's just very mild down to get some scares out of young kids. And honestly, I was a huge fan of the Goosebumps books growing up. I might have read a couple of the Fear Streets, not too many. I was more into the Goosebumps series. I mean, I guess they all kind of go together, but I might have read a couple of them. Can't recall a lot of them because it's been such a long time ago. But when I heard that Fear Street got dropped on Netflix, I had to instantly go and watch this movie because, as a fan, I had to see if this was good. So, going in, I thought it was actually going to be pretty mild down. I thought it was going to be more appropriate, just like the Goosebumps books. But no, they rated this film rated R for a reason. There's a lot of gore, a lot of blood. You know, there's very mild sexual content, but it's not enough to where it shows any body parts that would get you kind of I guess nervous if you're watching with family. But but yeah, so this was, I'm going to start off by saying, was definitely a very interesting and fun film to watch. I enjoyed the heck out of it. Loved that it was not just your basic cheesy Goosebumps or, you know, something that R.L. Stine is known for. It went up a notch and it gave you that horror feel that we all, when we go watch horror movies, want to see. We want to see blood, gore, guts. We want to see it all. So as a huge horror fan, this was not a disappointing film at all. I am going to give you guys all a heads up. There might be some very mild spoilers. I won't spoil too much because the film is fairly new, and for anybody who has not seen it, I want you to go and check it out and enjoy the experience instead of having all the spoilers out on YouTube. So I'll keep it very mild for you, but I do want to touch base on some points of this movie because, again, I enjoy the heck out of it. It was very exciting and had a lot of some interesting stuff in it. So, Fear Street 1994 is pretty much it's gonna be the first adaptation out of 3. I know at the very end of this film, it sets you up with a small little teaser on what the next one's gonna be. And I'm gonna say right now, I can't wait for that release because that one is interesting. It almost feels like a good setup to a R.L. Stine version of Friday the 13th. Interesting concept, but I cannot wait. It'll be, I think it's Fear Street 1978, I believe. But yes, we won't talk about that because that has not came out yet. Let's go ahead and dive into Fear Street 1994. So this film is pretty much based around, I don't want to say they're kids because at first I thought they were kids. Maybe like, I would have to say maybe they're still in their prime teenage, just maybe barely getting out if they're 18, because you didn't really see a whole lot of parents in this film per se. I mean, you get a backstory of the main character and her brother's father and whatnot, but like we didn't get a whole lot of parents in this. But you know, it's still in high school because these kids are still in high school. They still attend school and stuff, so they could be 17, maybe turning 18. I don't know. We'll stick with that. But yeah, so it's based on this one girl, but we're going to go ahead. I want to start off by talking about the opening shot because this kind of sets this movie up. So you have this opening shot of this character. I can't think of her name, but she works in the mall in one of the outlets. I did recognize her. She's a known actress. She played in Stranger Things. But yeah. So she works in the mall. The mall is just closing for the night. All the lights are going out. She's got to close up the shop that she's in. So she's pretty much in there closing everything up. She has this really, really creepy friend who works in another outlet in the mall, who, you know, pops up out of well, he don't pop up out of nowhere. He comes up to the her store and stuff. But of course, she's closing up and she gets creeped out because she hears noises. And just like any horror movie, you hear noises, you're like, oh crud, we're gonna go right into this right off the bat. So she hears some noises, she goes and investigates like any typical horror character does. They have to go and investigate the noise. But yeah, so she leaves, you know, where she's at, goes out into the mall, and then that's when she runs into her friend, who is a bit of a creep because he's got this huge sex blow-up toy, and I'm assuming he worked in like almost like a Spencer's, but they didn't want to label it as Spencer's for copyright purposes. But he's got one of those sex blow-up toys, and he's like being very inappropriate, like, oh, you know, he's got to do stuff with it before. And it was just weird. But, you know, she was like, I need a ride home. Can you give me a ride home? He's like, yeah, cool. We got this. I'm not sure if I would hop in this car with this guy because, like I said, he's kind of creepy and weird. But yeah, so she ends up going back in the store to finish closing up for the night. And he had to go back to his store to finish closing up. And, of course, more noises and more things pursued throughout this mall that freaks this girl out. And then out of nowhere, you see a masked guy, like it's like a skeleton mask, and he's all dressed up almost like looking like Ghostface from Scream, except for it was a skeleton, and he's got a knife in his hand about to stab some people. But he comes in and she's thinking it's her friend playing some prank on her, and she's like, oh no, stop it. Until the serial killer guy starts running after her and like cuts her arm and starts, you know, chasing her. Then she realizes, oh crap, we are in a serious predicament. So one thing that irritates me the most, and I feel like this whole film at times fell back into this, and it always has those stereotypical horror movies where the character has to do something that just irritates the heck out of you because you're like, why? It's almost like the people in a horror movie who hears a sound coming from the closet, so they have to go upstairs to investigate. And then when they start running, they're like running like they're in a dream sequence, and they're falling down and they're tripping over air, and it's like, oh my gosh, it was one of those stereotypical. But this girl, she ends up going into her friend's store. I'm gonna call it a Spencer's because it looked like a Spencer's with like all these things hanging up and whatnot. But you know, she walks in there and stuff, and you know, she's looking for her friend. And at first you're thinking, oh my goodness, I'm gonna see this friend butchered, because right as he was leaving her store, you saw some eyes looking at him before he walks away. So you're like, oh no, he got butchered before she did. And so of course she has to go hide in the corner. And when she goes to hide in the corner, you know, you see the serial killer come in. She's peeking out from around like, oh, what's going on here? And all of a sudden she turns around, sees the mask, and she goes, ah! Like, why? Why did you just scream? You know there was a mask behind you, and you just scream and let yourself out there for the person to hear you. But then she starts running like she's in a dream sequence. Behind the counter, she grabs her phone, dials 911, tries to get the cops to hurry up and get to her. And as she's dialing 911, the guy or whoever it was behind this mask is out into, you know, looking around and stuff. And she's like, oh my gosh, I'm at the Shady Side Mall, which was the name of the mall she was at. And then like all of a sudden it was like, oh, he's gone. Let me just not continue talking to this 911 operator on the phone, and let's just start running. Like, why couldn't, you know, like, I don't know. Me personally, I would have been sitting there like, I'm at the Shady Side Mall. We got somebody in here with a knife about to kill me. Hurry up, get up here fast. My address, blah, blah, blah. I've been saying this all so quickly, and like, all right. And then left the phone off the hook so the operator could stay on the phone until they dispatch somebody out there. But no, she doesn't do that. Luckily, though, the lady said, unlike a lot of horror movies, the dispatcher ends up hanging up and we just call it a prank call from somebody. But in this movie, the dispatcher says, if I don't hear any noise, I'm going to dispatch somebody out there, which is how they should be. So I do give that credit that they did keep that a little bit realistic. But yeah, so she ends up running. Of course, she runs out into the food court, and the masked killer ends up grabbing her. They tussle down on the floor, and he stabs her, slices her throat. She's bleeding everywhere, which I will have to add a side note that a lot of the blood looked very cheesy. Not gonna lie. I don't know if it was because in this mall there wasn't a whole lot of lighting, so you had a lot of blue, like, what do you call it, black light. So when you saw the blood in her mouth, it looked kind of orangish, like a paint, like they just put paint. And it was like, I wasn't buying the blood. It just looked like somebody just said, oh, we need to add some blood, so we're just going to throw together something that will represent it, but it doesn't look nothing like it. And but like I said, that could have just been an error, or it could have just been because of the black light shining on the blood. It just came off like it was really cheesy. But yeah, so she ends up bleeding out on the floor. This masked killer's on top of her. He's about to stab her again. Not that she wasn't already dead, when a bullet hole gets blown through the back of his head and out his forehead, which meant the cops had finally arrived, which I do give the cops credit in this movie. They actually arrived on time and didn't wait like an hour until after people were dead to come. But he blows a hole through this guy's head, and just before her character dies, she does end up unmasking him, and it was revealed that the serial killer was her friend that worked in the Spencers. But he was more possessed, because he looked like he was almost like a cross between a zombie and maybe possessed by a demon. But then you learn, as this movie progresses on, a lot of the storyline revolves around a witch being buried in this little town. Why can't I think of the name of this town? But it's the witch is buried in the city, or in the town, so the town is pretty much haunted with this witch's presence, because you start to notice a pattern that 1994 was the first year out of a decade before the last hit of the witch's curse came upon the town. So you start to notice that there was a pattern throughout ages and ages back until the witch must have died. But yeah, so that was the first occurrence in over a decade. The whole Shady Side Mall massacre is what they called it. But Shady Side, I'm pretty sure the town is called Shady Side Mall, Shady Side. But anyways, so that is your first opening sequence of Fear Street, is this whole massacre at the mall, because unlike the girl, there was a few other people that ended up dying in the mall, so it wasn't just her. But yeah, then it opens up with some interesting opening credits. I do like when credits open up with newspaper clippings, so you do get a little bit more backstory on what was going on in the town before this whole sequence. But then it opens up with another our leading character, and it was a girl. She's in her bedroom. She looks very sad, depressed. You kind of notice that right off the bat, because she's writing a note to who she would consider, or who she is writing to, her ex and stuff. So she's writing some like, I can't remember. She writes some very mean and hurtful things because she's so heartbroken by her ex. And so yeah, so at first, her character is kind of interesting, like, okay, she's going to be one of those vulnerable characters, but no. What I really liked about her characters was she was not vulnerable in the least bit. She was one of those types that once she realized what was going on, she was going to kick butt. And I like those kind of lead roles and heroines that are automatically ready to just throw down and fight. But yes, so her character does get set up to look like she's going to be vulnerable. She might end up dying in the end and stuff like that. But nope, she's a badass. But yeah, so you know, so it's her. She's living with her brother, who I quite frankly thought he was in middle school. I'm assuming he was a little bit older because of some of the sequences that happen later on in the film. I'm like, okay, so I thought he was in middle school, but I guess not. But yeah, so he's one of your I like to call it. He's like he has his own little bedroom set up. He's got his computer. He's like a one of those people that can hack into computers, and he's like high tech and stuff, but you know, super cool because he ends up being like the source to this whole thing that's going on, because you see his character being opened up in the bedroom where he's on his old 90s block computer and he's typing in a AOL instant messenger, it looked like, and he's typing to his friend, or his online friend, his cyber friend, and they're talking about the Shadyside Mall massacre. And then he was like, oh yeah, and then they start talking about like, oh, like the time that happened back in the 70s when this happened and this. So they start throwing out everything that occurred before that Shadyside Mall massacre. And but yeah, so that's when I was kind of figuring maybe they were like, at least the sister was maybe 18, because you don't see their parents, sorry, because you do get a backstory that her dad was an alcoholic, and I can't remember what happened to her mom, but yeah, you just know her dad's like this alcoholic, but you don't see any of them at any point or time in this movie. But yeah, and then you get opened up to two more characters. You have her two best friends, and the girl is actually her brother. The girl who's her best friend is her brother's crush. And then you have this other friend who's like this nut. I call him like almost like you have like the stoner kid in every horror movie, but he was like the crazy nut that, you know, it's like, okay, he's gonna take some people down too. And you almost thought he might have been like a serial killer or something, because he was just like crazy, but in a good way. He was actually pretty cool. I liked his character a lot. And then she's kind of got like this really disdain hate. You see her get pulled away from the memorial that they were having for the girl that died at the Shadyside Mall, because she went to school with them. And they're having the fight, and that's how you kind of get more of a backstory of what happened to their relationship that made things go south, and pretty much that got blown up. They're leaving the memorial service band concert, and they're all on the bus getting ready to leave. The lead character is upset because of everything that just went down with her and her ex, and you see this car behind the bus, almost like they're trying to run the bus off the road, and they're throwing stuff at the bus. And the lead character notices that in the car is the jock boyfriend, his friend, and her ex. So of course she gets this revengeful state, like, oh, you're gonna come and try to run us off the road and this and that. I am going to do something, which I was kind of figuring at that point when you see her nose bleed that she was kind of possessed for a second, because she opens the back of the bus and she throws out a cooler of like Gatorade or water or something at the car, which causes the car to spin off of the road into the open. And yeah, so then, like, as you know, at first I'm thinking she just killed her ex. No, her ex survives the car accident. She gets out of the car, and it comes to blow that she landed on top of the witch's burial site, and she disturbed the bones of the witch, and that caused a curse on her ex that gets blown up throughout this whole movie. And that's pretty much what caused everything to go into effect pretty quick. But the witch is pretty much mad at her ex, and now they have to do what it takes to save her. But yeah, it's pretty cool. Like, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not gonna get more into spoilers on everything that happened throughout, but it was pretty cool. I will say I do like that in the end things do get patched up with some characters. I do like that. This film was overall great. Like, it literally kept you on the edge of your seat to the end of the movie. There was no dull moments. It was all very entertaining and exciting. You wanted to know what was going to happen next. You wanted to know what more is there, and it was great. It was an all-out interesting and fun film. I would definitely rate this movie I would rate it a solid 10 out of 10. Like, I'm super excited for the next part to come out. So Fear Street 1978, that's going to be a really exciting one. So I'm assuming they're going to launch all of them on Netflix, and I'll be ready for it because this movie was very fun. So if you haven't seen any of the Fear Streets, well, if you haven't seen Fear Street yet, not that there was any more out, excuse me, I definitely highly recommend going on Netflix and checking it out. It is on the top 10 hits on Netflix, so it's pretty quick to find, but definitely give it a good hour, and it was an hour and a half watch because it was entertaining. I loved the heck out of it, and it had a very good setup for the next film. So that is my review on the Fear Street Part 1 1994. It was a really exciting watch, and I definitely really enjoyed being able to review this movie with you guys. But yeah, I definitely say go watch it. It's good. I'm gonna keep saying that. Go watch it. It's good. But yes, thank you, boys and ghouls. If you have any questions or your thoughts on this movie, definitely throw them down in the comments below. I would love to hear what everyone thought of Fear Street, and what you guys are looking forward to next in the next two movies. And yeah, and if you haven't subscribed to our channel, definitely go subscribe. We post content weekly for your entertainment. I am not sure what we have coming next, but we definitely have some fun stuff in store for you guys. We will not disappoint you. You guys have a wonderful day. Thank you for tuning into my review, and look forward to talking about our next film or future films. Thank you guys. Bye.